Hello, this is Abby.
Dear Abbey, this is gonna be a long one.
Oh boy.
Dear Abbey, how do you tell the difference between a new exciting crush and a rebound?
Does it matter?
Dear Abbey.
Dear Abbey.
Dear Abbey.
Welcome to our little corner of the internet. This is the Dear Abbey podcast. I hope you stay and hang out with us. See you in a sec. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Dear Abbey. I'm your host. My name is Abby. Very excited to be here. Because of the schedule change, I really miss recording when I'm not recording. And I miss you guys. I miss being here. I miss my people. So every time I get to record now, I am so excited. And also, it's good because it's like creating a longing, right? Instead of overwhelm. So that's good. So I'm happy, but also I do miss you guys. I miss the podcast, the weeks I'm not recording. So happy to be here and thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. We're talking about not waiting until we've hit rock bottom to make small changes, and also not to wait until we're at the lowest of the low or feel like we have to wait till we feel as bad as we once did in order to make the changes that we know we probably need to make based on our past experiences and also what we've done in therapy or what we've done previously to help ourselves feel better. And also if there's certain like medications that we can look into or certain things that have helped us in our past that we can turn to again if we are in a place where we know that maybe we're starting to slip a little bit into maybe some habits or just some or mindset or state of being that we don't really want to slip back into. We're talking about the tendency that sometimes we have to create our own suffering and make it really, really bad just so we then are more motivated to change. And I feel like that can be a little bit of a cycle, and it's just not a very efficient cycle, but also things take a long time to learn. So, it's okay if sometimes we fall into that cycle, but I really just wanted to talk about it because I feel like I was definitely like this, especially when I was younger, but even in my early 20s, I felt like I had to wait until things were really, really, really bad. And then I would be kind of humble enough to change or to make any changes or to even accept help or to ask for help. But I definitely learned through my lowest of the low points with my mental health that like I don't want to wait until that happens anymore, and I don't need to. Anyways, that's what we're going to talk about for the main topic of today. But first, we're going to start with just normal life updates, dubs and L's, of course. We're going to go into the details, and then we'll go into the rest of the episode. My dub for this week is that my confidence is growing, and it's very heavily tied to my D&D game. And you guys are going to hear about my D&D game a lot because it's something that's very important to me for many reasons. And one of them I will share is it's good for my confidence and my ability to express, because I am able to create stories. I'm able to stand and speak and have fun, but I'm also, people are looking at me and it's weird because I can talk in front of like thousands of people. Never done that before, but I can speak in front of a lot of people and I have no nerves. Like I get nervous maybe right before, but then I start speaking and I just enjoy public speaking. But when it comes to a small group of friends, I just want to be the one that doesn't talk. Like I don't want to talk. I don't know if that's an OCD thing, but I really don't want to say something that's going to hurt somebody, or also I don't want to say something that I'm like, I kind of wish that I kept that to myself because I changed my mind, or I don't know. But also I think that's just depends on who I'm with. If I'm with my family, I'll share anything and everything because I know that they will allow me to change, and I can change my opinion. I can change who I am, how I think, my views on everything, my feelings on things, and what I like, what I don't like. And they're going to like accept that and just be like, okay, and not think about it too much. But sometimes with friends that I didn't grow up with, like your siblings, I get more scared to voice anything because I don't want things to be taken the wrong way or used against me in some way. So I normally just like to be quiet. And I also just like to listen because I like to learn, I like to observe, and I enjoy just sitting back and listening and being kind of in my own world, but also engaging in the conversation by being like a good listener. But that being said, normally when I do speak in front of people, a group about 6 to 10 is just not a 4 to 10 group is just an uncomfortable amount of people for me. I normally get red in the face. I overthink what I'm saying. I can't just be in the moment. It's really difficult for me to just be in the moment and to not have that part of my brain hijack the conversation or just shut down completely and then I don't want to talk. So, but with Dungeons and Dragons, I'm in front of people as the game master or the dungeon master, and I have to express like a story. I have to describe things. I have to improv. I have to look into people's eyes and be present as I'm acting out a character or they're acting out their character and I'm responding to what they're saying. Like I'm being a very active listener. The first couple of times that I did it, I was so annoyed with myself after because I just felt like I did a horrible job. I don't know, people say they have fun, so I'm like, it couldn't be that bad, but also I think the type of person that wants to be the dungeon master, they really want it to be fun and engaging and an awesome story and create that with their players. And so I think they can be hard on themselves. I definitely am. But that being said, I have grown to, but now that we've played for a couple of months, I've done it a lot more. I'm able to really just be present while we're playing. And I do a lot of prep, obviously, like the planning and the prep. I've learned how to, for the most part, do it very well and I kind of know what I should and shouldn't prep and how much time to spend on it because a lot of things don't go the way you think. But so it's fun to get better at this. And so my dub is that I'm more confident in my ability to tell a story through describing things, but I know I can get better at that. And I'm trying to, instead of when I make a mistake, bashing myself and, ruminating about my mistakes and why am I like this, and that kind of victim mentality, I'm trying to really just be kinder to myself and be excited to get better. I think a lot of people that want to be good at something, when you want to be good at something and you want to do something really well, we can be really hard on ourselves if we're not doing it that well. And it kind of makes us pause and it stops us from doing the things that we want and that we like because we're debilitated by the thought of making a mistake or debilitated by the thought of being bad. Like, what if you say something stupid? What if you don't perform well? What if you make a mistake? And, I think that comes from sometimes a place where we actually know that we could do great and that we do believe in ourselves in some capacity, but we don't fully understand the concept of learning from mistakes and that is so important when you want to be good at something because the greatest of the greats, they have made so many mistakes and they learn from them. I've heard so many different clips or I listen to full podcasts of really successful people in whatever craft, whatever art, whatever career, sport, business, craft they're in. And they always talk about learning from your mistakes and being able to learn how to make a mistake successfully and to enjoy the process of learning and to open yourself up to the vulnerability of being a human and making mistakes in front of people. That idea to me was so debilitating, to be in front of people and make a mistake or not do as good as I think I could do. That was so scary to me, but I wanted to throw myself into the game and just do it because I know I wanted to do it. I have so much fun. It is such a fun game and it's so fun to be with other people, to see their creativity, to see their characters that they create, how they interact in the world. And It's a great way to express and create with your friends. So I kind of did this as half exposure and also because I really wanted to. But a lot of it was exposure work because I never felt like I was going to be good enough. And I also knew that I was going to make mistakes. And that was so scary to me to make it in front of people. And some of the friends haven't been friends with my whole life. So I'm like scared that they're going to hate me and then I'm going to ruin everything. So when I play and I make a mistake or I forget something or I wanted to say something and I didn't say it and it would have been a great time, instead of biting myself, instead of beating myself up for it and wanting to quit and throw in the towel, I'm learning how to really just love that I'm trying and to love the part of me that loves it and to love the part of me that is doing my best. It comes down sometimes, I think, to having OCD, but also being somebody that is sensitive. I can get my feelings are very tender and also very big. If you are not someone that understands, sometimes when I talk about being highly sensitive, it's hard to like describe and I don't want to be misunderstood, but criticism is really hard to take. And I don't lash out on anyone that really criticizes me, but I listen to it internally and I just like, yep, nod my head, good to go to the other person. But internally, I'm having a really big experience of like a battle of my mind of like, I'm not a worthless person because they think I could do better in some areas. Like it's been a really key thing for me and even my OCD recovery and just my overall enjoyment of life. And especially trying to be more in touch with my creative side and that creative process to compartmentalize that the part of me that loves creating, that loves storytelling, that loves art and all of these things, the part of me that loves that and is opening myself up and opening my heart to it, when I get any kind of feedback, it feels like it's shooting straight into that part that's opening my heart. And so I want to like protect and close it. But instead, I feel like I'm learning to keep my heart open, stay open, and receive any feedback with an open mind. And it's less painful when I just have an open mind and it doesn't have to go straight to like the negative self-talk. Anyways, that's a really long dub. But speaking of like creativity and that creative process, and I take my hobbies now very seriously. I talk about creating a lot, I think, on the podcast. Maybe, I don't know actually what it is perceived as, but the L that goes with that is not necessarily from the past couple weeks, but it is kind of from my past, just from my past in general, and something I was talking to my husband about. I was telling him all the things that I want to start doing more, and I've been committing to sketching just every single day, trying to get better at my art. And sometimes if I'm on Pinterest or if I get on social media, and a lot of my feed now is just artists, and it's also, a bunch of other things, but there's a lot of artists that I see now. So sometimes I'll watch and I'll immediately start comparing where somebody else is that's younger than me. Like they could be 20 years old and they're like eons past what I'm able to do. And it makes me feel really small and also makes me feel like a lot of self-loathing. But as we talked about on the last podcast, like the self-loathing part, I when it comes up, I don't think it's really towards me. It's really just a sadness that comes with growing up, being like so young, already having really intense, intrusive thoughts, images. Like my oldest memories, like my earliest memories all have to do with, I'd say 80% of my old memories that I have, if not all of them, that I can remember, all have to do with intrusive thoughts or an OCD obsession. And those are like my earliest memories. So a lot of my childhood and my teen years were spent trying to distract myself. I was not in a place where I was able to focus on my craft and also be able to focus on my painting. I was way too overwhelmed with what was going on mentally. My time was spent trying to distract myself or trying to figure out what was wrong with me or just to keep myself down. I didn't spend time doing the things that I know I really cared about because I was too anxious about it. And I think I got really frustrated when I wasn't good at something at a young age as well. So I would quit a lot of things. And now looking back, I wish I didn't quit, but also I mostly just have a lot of compassion for myself. Going back to the self-loathing, like when I see other artists that are younger or the same age as me and they're like so successful already, sometimes there's a part of me that feels like a fraud and that has like that self-loathing feeling come up. But again, I really don't feel like it's directed towards me because the wise, the smarter, the more logical part, honestly, of me knows that I was really struggling mentally and my focus was on that versus the things that I know I really wanted to do. It's hard to have OCD, period. But it's hard when you've had it since you were like, can remember. And then you don't get diagnosed until you're in your mid-20s. And then you realize how much time was spent doing things that you didn't actually really want to do. And so I wasn't able to spend all that time drawing or painting or creating as much as I would want to because I was so anxious. Like I was just debilitated by my OCD. That's what I thought I cared about was my OCD compulsions and stuff like that. But so anyways, my L was just, which isn't really an L, but it was just a wave of sadness that has been coming lately since I've been able to create more and I have more space mentally that's freed up that I can use for fun, for D&D, which is why I talk about it a lot because it's really important to me, like how I get to express and create and have fun and engage in that way with other people. That's always just a difficult part of having a mental, struggling mentally in like really real ways because it can be a disability in some ways where you aren't able to do the things that you would have liked to do because of what was going on in here in your mind. So if you ever feel like that or you feel like you're behind in some way, I feel the same way. And we deserve so much grace and compassion, and we can give that to ourselves. And there's probably already a part of you that knows that that's what you need versus more frustration and self-hate and self-loathing and, you know, more negative talk. We need that compassion, and that part of us needs that compassion and that understanding that just because we're not where we want to be yet doesn't mean we're never going to get there, because we can and we will, and B, there really is no rush. There doesn't need to be a timestamp on our joy, our success, our happiness, because we can feel that now, because we can work on, you know, being present. And I think especially with creating, a lot of that, at least for me, comes with being present and comes with being in the now and in the moment and letting go of where I think I should be already, because then it just makes the process of learning way less enjoyable. But it is a difficult process of looking back, realizing how much time was spent on obsessions and your OCD versus things that you wish that you could have spent time on. I feel like everyone just has their own path with that and their own way of processing that and then moving on, or, you know, living with that, whatever that looks like. Okay, those are long dubs and L's. Sorry about that. We're going to go into the details now. The details from the past 2 weeks that I have really been paying attention to is my husband and I have gone to a lot of movies. We went to see the old Top Gun. They were playing it in theaters. It was really cool. Welcome to... I don't actually know if I'm allowed to sing, but I don't really well, yeah, I won't sing it, but great songs. There were some good songs in that movie. Really cool clips. Like it was just a cool movie. What was the other one? We saw the sheep one, like Sheep Detectives or something. I don't know what it was called, but I really, really liked that movie. It was about the sheep that are solving a murder mystery basically. And I love it. It's very goofy humor, which I love. I love the goofy, and I love the Goofy movie, but I do love goofy humor. I think everybody needs a little bit of it, a little bit every day. And then we saw The Mandalorian and Grogu yesterday. My husband's a big cinema nerd, so he goes and sees all the movies. I'll go see the ones that aren't scary and that are like rated PG, PG-13. I don't really love a lot of rated R movies because I just don't enjoy them. They're either too gory, they're too gross, there's too many weird scenes, and I'm like, I don't want to see that. I just don't feel like I should be watching that. And I'm happy without it. But if there's a really good rated R movie, that I think I should watch and it's not going to send me into a spiral, then I'll watch it. And it's worth the watch. And even if I do have the opportunity to go into a spiral graciously by OCD, I will respectfully decline. And the movie was probably worth it anyways. A lot of war movies. If I watch war movies, those will make me spiral. And so I have to go into it knowing it's like a long exposure and I have to take breaks or just be like, okay, you know what? I tried and this might be too much for me. There's too many things happening. But while we were watching the Sheep Detectives movie specifically, there was a lot of people around us. We heard like the crackling of food, the opening of wrappers, sometimes out quiet parts, which the etiquette of movies, I feel like normally is the second there's like some loud thing happening, a crash, that's when you rip open a plastic thing that you've been trying to open and eat. Like candy, rip it open either before the movie begins or if you haven't gotten to it, rip it open the second it gets loud so nobody can hear it. That being said, there's also some people like talking, chattering. So I'm sitting there watching that movie and I can hear the people behind me talking and I can hear someone opening wrappers close to me. For the first couple minutes, I was out of the movie because now I'm just hearing the sounds around me. And so I do believe in etiquette in some capacity. However, I refuse to let that ruin the movie or put me into a bad mood in any way whatsoever. So for a second, I was like, okay, I feel very frustrated that people are doing this right now and talking. That's just, you don't talk loudly during the movies while the movie is happening. During the credits, I don't give a rip. Do whatever you want. I just tried to re-engage in the movie and I was able to. And then I was thinking how happy I was that people were just at the movies again because, again, my husband loves cinema, movies. He'll see everything for the love of people who really want to make good movies and care about it. And we love the movie theaters. Like I loved the movie theaters growing up. I loved going with my family to see a movie all together. Didn't happen too often, but when we did, it was like the best experience. And going with friends, it's just a great place to be. And it's way better than watching something at your house, in my opinion. It makes it more special. Doesn't feel so like gluttonous of I'm just going to watch 1,000 movies. It's like, especially when it's a movie you believe that people cared a lot about to make, it's nice to go support it in the movie theaters and to watch it, get the popcorn, get snacks, whatever. I mean, I love watching movies at home too, but there is something special that I love and my husband, like we just love going to the theater. So I was sitting there listening to people be a little bit loud, but it was a full theater and it made me so happy that people went to support it, that people were there, that we're all just like sitting here watching this thing that somebody made. And that made the movie so much sweeter because I wasn't like so rigid and okay, everyone should be doing this. This is like the right thing to do would be etiquette in this way. Will I be etiquette when I'm at a movie? Yes, because that's just what I think. That's just what I would appreciate that. So I will do that for other people. Some people might not care about that. So they're like, I don't care. Maybe you should be more relaxed. You know, everyone's different. Everyone has different opinions, different experiences. But it did create a way better environment for me mentally and emotionally watching this movie, hearing stuff happening all around me with the people watching the movie. And it was just a sweeter experience because of it. So big believer in changing your mindset. It's not always my natural instinct. In fact, usually it's the opposite of what I want to think in the moment. Also, at the end of the movie of that one and The Mandalorian and Grogu, people were clapping. I love clapping at the end of the movie. Sometimes I feel like there's a part of me that is cringing out when I'm clapping, but I'm like, why? Like, just clap. If you like the movie, it's just, it's cute. It's cute that we like to clap after stuff. Just like slap your hands together. Come on, get your palms slapping together. It's nice to be able to switch my mindset and not have that like rigid way of thinking and just be excited that people are there, it's loud, people are chattering, and what a blessing that is to be able to see a movie and be surrounded by other people that like the same things. Those are my in the details. It's just an adorable thing. I think it's also just a hesitation of acting like you care so much. That was always a problem with me, to act like I care. Still struggle with that sometimes because anyways. Okay, so those are kind of long life updates, but let's get into the meat of today's episode. Today, again, to remind you, it's been a while, we are talking about not waiting till you hit rock bottom to start making those small, like baby step changes, or also just to restart or to start over if you feel you need some sort of a reset. And this definitely applies to if you have a mental health disorder or something that you struggle with, a mental illness that you struggle with, that you maybe have not taken the same precautions as you could be taking in order to feel better, just in general overall, but also to improve your mental health and also your physical health, like all of it, just your health. What do I mean by rock bottom? It's obvious. I think rock bottom is a term all of us know, specifically in a place to where we have fully let ourselves go in some capacity, where we have let go of discipline, we've let go of care, we almost have let that numbing effect sometimes that we get when we are struggling or when we're making the choices that we don't necessarily really want to be making, or when we're not moving our bodies as much as we would like to, we kind of feel this guilt a little bit. And instead of changing the way we live to make ourselves feel better, we let the guilt kind of eat at us, and instead of motivate us to change and go back to ways that we will feel happier and better about life, about ourselves, about everything, we just let that numbing guilt take over, and we just dig ourselves deeper and deeper into a hole, and we don't pull ourselves out of it. We just let it go, and we just kind of throw our hands up. And it's not a surrendering. It's like sometimes we just purposefully numb, but we feel something nagging at us like, hey, stop doing this. Like, this is hurting you. This is not helping you. This is easy, sure, but it's not actually good for you. Like, sometimes we just have those like feelings, and we don't always take a second and listen to them. Rock bottom, I think, is a culmination of letting yourself go again in that capacity, letting that guilt eat you away until you're at a place to where your life is not recognizable. You internally feel unrecognizable. You're scared. You're in a circumstance you really don't want to be in, and you're in a place where you have no other choice but to seek help, or you're in a really, really bad situation. And for me, that can just really look like mentally, where I'm very, very, very deeply depressed and not doing anything to help myself. And that can be really scary, and that gets to scary thoughts. So that's what I mean by rock bottom. Not letting yourself get to that bad of a place before you start making those changes. I do believe that sometimes we had to get to that rock bottom in the first place to be humble enough, and also to understand the reality of life enough, have that unconditional life acceptance, but mostly the humility to ask and accept help, and to admit that we need help because we are at rock bottom. I do think that is necessary for a lot of people, and it was for me to really be humble enough and to accept the help and to understand myself that, okay, I can't do this, quote unquote, like alone. Sure, I'm the one that's doing a lot of the work, but also I need a therapist. I needed my therapist at certain times. I didn't know, I had no idea how to handle what was happening with my brain and my body and my OCD. I did not know what to do, and I needed support. Also, I needed support of my family. Like, I needed somebody to cry to that loved me. I needed somebody that would go hang out with me if I needed it. And also I needed faith. I needed God. I needed, something that was beyond me, beyond them, beyond anything that I knew is there for me. And I needed to accept that I needed that, that I have needs. it was helpful for me at that point to be at rock bottom. But now I understand a lot of the stuff that will be helpful moving forward in my life. So I don't want to go back to rock bottom because I already have learned a lot of those fundamental skills to stay above water, to keep my mental health above water. It's also more, it's interesting, and I'm not an expert on this, so I'm just speaking from experience, and it's just more of like a theory, and I'm just talking about the experience that I used to have of wanting to hit rock bottom almost, so that way it's easier to change in some ways because you're more humble. But you can always choose to humble yourself in the moment, and you are always capable of making those changes as you are right now. But you are pretty capable of recognizing that you're not in control of everything, and that you can do that at any moment to just recognize and be a little bit more humble and accept support and ask for support and help. So if there's a part of us, a part of you that's wanting to feel better, that is like, why are you scrolling so much? Why are you playing too many video games? Why are you being that rude to your spouse? Why are you never picking up the phone when people are calling that you care about? Why are you not engaging with the world in this way? Like there sometimes are just internal feelings that we have that sometimes we don't fully understand, but also that I think are trying to get us to a place where we feel better, and also to help us live up to our potential, because we're humans and we make mistakes, but we are also capable of really amazing things. And also I think the numbness and maybe depression can play a role in that as well, when you don't really understand what's worth it about changing the way that I live. Like, I'm happy the way that I am, which can be very true. We can be happy, but I do think that there's sometimes a longing for something deeper. And if we don't feel like we're getting that, it's hard to believe that we can get it sometimes, to trust that maybe there is something more for us and deeper and more fulfilling. But it's scary to take that chance because, it's like sometimes my OCD will be like, well, what if you're just not being happy with what you have? And I'm like, well, I'm trying to be happy with what I have, but sometimes I am feeling like I'm missing something. And so I seek that, and I want that, because why wouldn't I just try to, like, life is beautiful, and the freaking sky goes on forever. Why can't I try to, the sky is the limit. Why can't I try to experience life in a deeper, more full way? There's nothing wrong with that. So sometimes the feeling of like, okay, well, when I was at rock bottom, I feel like I felt so motivated to change, which again makes sense because you're at a point where you're looking at life very realistically, which does kind of sounds depressing, because not like the thoughts are more true when you're at rock bottom. To be really clear, I'm saying you're looking at your humanness in a realistic way, that you're complex human beings, and that we have needs. And if we're not getting those needs met, things will start to fall through the cracks, and we may start to feel bad, and that we need to take care of ourselves, and that's important. And also it helps us understand the exact opposite of how happy we can feel, how much fullness we can feel, how expanded our hearts can feel, whatever it is. So when we think about, okay, well, when I was at rock bottom, I felt a lot more motivated, which makes sense. But instead of maybe waiting till you're at rock bottom again, if you've already been there, just remember, like, just take a second to remember what that was like, and then remember what mindset you had that made you feel motivated. Like, was it that did you like soften your heart, open your heart more to other people? What were the specific things when you were at rock bottom, or when you started to really change, that motivated you? What were the things what were the feelings? What were the thoughts that were underneath that initial motivation? Then remember that. And so you don't have to go back actually to the worst mental place you've ever been, or the worst situation you've ever been, but you did experience that, and that was real. Like, just because you don't feel bad now doesn't mean that didn't happen. So I like to pull from my experiences back then and just remember what that was like, and remember some of the tools that I learned, remember the mindset that I had that made me feel happier and more free from OCD. And I use that now. And so I don't have to go back to like this rock bottom place. I can just remember the things that I learned and, the mindset that I had that helped me stay motivated to recover. And the last thing I want to say about this is the feeling of guilt or shame can really eat us up. People think about this differently, but when I feel really guilty and I don't bring it to the surface, or I just suppress it and act like I'm not guilty, I don't feel guilty, I don't feel any shame, I'm awesome, I feel great, and I just lie to myself, or I try to act like I have no feelings about anything, that makes me feel more guilty. I can literally feel an extra layer of guilt and shame be added on to that, because now I'm like not being truthful with myself. But when I'm able to bring things to to surface, to the light, either talking about it in therapy, to family, to friends, to journaling about it, to praying about it, to meditating, to letting it come to the surface and being with it and letting it do its whole thing. And then eventually it starts to subside. But I think the guilt, if we don't, again, process it and listen to maybe a more of a hopeful message underneath it, could be saying, hey, you are so much more capable than you think. Maybe don't distract yourself so much from any kind of pain. Maybe put the phone down. Maybe put the distractions down. Maybe let go of this one person. Maybe bring this person back into your life, whatever it is, and go after this dream again. Go after this again. Trust this again. Like restart this. There just could be a voice underneath the initial guilt feeling that when we're able to kind of peel back the layers and get to what it really is, it can just be it can help motivate us, and also it can help clear up that guilt came from something that was supposed to be good, and that either somebody else made bad, or that we misunderstood initially, or that we, someone made us feel bad, so now we make ourselves feel bad. Like, that's the complexity of humans and the brain, and humans and our brain. There's layers and there's pieces, and our brains are amazing and they retain so much information. They're constantly processing. So it's important to help manage your brain, and also to, if you do struggle, to compartmentalize or to process, or big feelings, don't know what to do, crazy thoughts, loud thoughts, don't know what to do, then that's why like a professional is a professional. That's why they exist, is because your brain is complex, and it can be really helpful to have someone to help you process and understand what's happening. And again, this is all just from my observations. It also feels a lot more like self-love and self-compassion when you're honest with what life choices right now you're making that you wish that you weren't, or that you wish you did more of, or whatever the case is. It feels a lot more honest, and it feels a lot more loving when we're able to like actually get ourselves to a place where we feel better, where we feel proud of ourselves, where we feel fulfilled, accomplished, whatever it is that we're seeking, versus, again, that numbing, pushing it down, suppressing, acting like it's not happening, acting like we're awesome, everything's great, but letting things flow. So that's all I wanted to say on that subject. Okay, I hope any of that made sense, of course. And now we're going to do a Dear Abbey, and then we'll end today's episode. As I'm looking for this on my phone, I'm so excited because I got tickets to BTS. I think I probably already talked about this. I got tickets to BTS for September, and I think it's the last show that they're doing, because it's like the last show in September in LA, and just is the last show. I'm taking my husband, so I'm going to have to do a PowerPoint to show him who every member is, what their names are, my favorite things about them, why I love BTS, why I love each of them. I'm going to show them my favorite run episodes, my favorite songs by them. That's going to be a long one. Excited to listen to all their music on the way to the concert. My husband's never been to a big concert before, and BTS is like a huge concert. I'm really excited for him to see the Purple Ocean, the light sticks, and seeing how sweet they look. And I feel like he will like that. As I'm preparing to go, I want to make, in the Vegas shows, they all have these t-shirts, and I don't know if somebody made them. Well, obviously somebody had to make the shirts. I don't know if a fan made them or if they had a designer that made them, but they're like, it has their album, all the songs on their album, And then it has paint and all these really cool symbols and like it's just they're cool shirts. And I really want to make my own, but make it for LA and then wear it to the show. So I'm going to have to do some sewing. I'm going to have to do some painting. I'm going to have to do some stamp print things on it. But I really want to make the shirt because I think it'd be sick.
Dear Abby, hello. I have a question. So I have noticed that with my OCD, I get really stuck in this like all or nothing thinking about the media I consume. And so like I try not to doom scroll or listen or watch like media or podcasts that might be entertaining in the moment, but then they kind of just make me feel sluggish or unmotivated afterwards. And so when I get in this spot where I'm just like consuming kind of all this brain rot media, then I'll get super motivated and want to change and fill my life with all this like uplifting, motivating content. And when I do that, it makes me feel like my most confident self, but I feel like it only lasts a couple days before I'm tired or I want a reward or something, and I go back to doom scrolling and go back to the brain rot content for a couple days. And that's when I definitely feel my worst and my least confident, and it's hard to like look outside of myself. Anyway, I just feel really stuck between this cycle, and it feels like I'm two different people. So I was wondering, do you have any advice about how to get out of this all or nothing thinking, and what's your advice on getting out of this OCD cycle? Because I know the content I consume really affects how I view the world and myself, but I just can't seem to stop going back and forth instead of just finding a medium. Thanks so much. Thanks for listening.
I love that question. I 100%. Well, first of all, I get the black and white thinking. I had just talked about the rigid thinking sometimes that comes with OCD or just our brains. I don't know what the difference is, but the super black and white, I understand. Like I'm one person one day, I'm another person the other day, even though I'm like the same person. But sometimes we, go to one habit that's a little bit more maybe self-destructive. And then we have other habits that are actually more supportive of ourselves. So I think there's a couple things that I'm thinking that maybe would be good advice. That this advice comes from me trying to do this right now, because I think it's just an easy way to weirdly in the moment self-soothe and to also numb. It's kind of the numbing thing that I was just talking about. It's like to cover up the feelings of like we're not enough, or maybe a feeling of I'm not where I want to be yet, or a feeling of what's the point, of maybe more depressive thoughts, whatever it is. But the scrolling or listening or watching brain rot stuff sometimes can be more self-destructive. One really quick thing I'll add though is sometimes brain rot is just funny. There's nothing wrong with wanting entertainment, but in a world where we are constantly needing to be entertained because of what's happening with our brains and like the stuff that's firing, we live in a world where entertainment is so readily available and it's at our fingertips for free. Not really for free, but because there's like opportunity cost, but it seems easy and free. So whenever it's like, oh, I don't really feel good, I'm going to like just watch something that's going to make me laugh. But I understand the feeling that comes after maybe you've spent a little bit too much time, or you're doing it instead of doing something else that you really would have rather spent your time doing. That's a big thing. So it's probably normal to feel that like, ugh, I kind of wish I didn't do that feeling after. But it does kind of go with what I talked about today, honestly, which is, so hopefully my episode has been kind of helpful already. But for some advice of what to do, recognize maybe the thoughts that come and the feelings that come before you open up your phone or you turn on Netflix or whatever like is your go-to distraction. What are the thoughts and feelings that come up before, and just write them down, like brain vomit, and just be really curious and take like an extra 2 minutes to sit in silence and then see if maybe what you want to do changes, or maybe sit in silence for like 5 to 10 minutes, see if what you want to pick up changes. Because sometimes all it takes is a little bit of a pause and a little bit of out of the same routine to feel like your brain gets a minute to not get what it wants immediately. So then that part of your brain that's like, we need to scroll now, or this is what's going to make us the happiest, because based on historicals, we did enjoy scrolling last time when we were doing it, So then it gets on it gets it off of its normal cycle of, I want this. I'm going to tell her to open up her phone because I think this helps. But then we do and we feel worse. So then if you give that pause and your brain like 5 minutes, a couple minutes to just cool off from the initial urge to open and scroll or to distract in whatever way, it'll sometimes automatically just lower its voice a little bit, so that way you can think clearly and make a sound decision versus one that's based on urgency. So that's one piece of advice, maybe, is noticing the thoughts and feelings that come right before. And then that way also, when you do that, you can, next time you feel certain ways or you have similar thoughts or there's a certain wave of emotion that comes up before you go straight to your phone or you go to distract, take that second and recognize, okay, this is the cycle. Let's first recognize what the cycle is, and then that way we can actually start to break the cycle. Because breaking a cycle is not hard. It is hard. Breaking a cycle is very hard to do. That's like the hardest thing to do with OCD is like, that's the whole point, is you're trying to break these ongoing cycles. So recognize the cycle, what happens in those steps. And then that way, next time you feel a certain way, you're like, okay, this is normally when I will want to pick up. I'll want to like stop working out for the week. I'll stop wanting to do my hobbies for the week. I'll stop all of these things. So let's take a second and what's some other way that I can handle these feelings, these thoughts, this big emotion, these desires, like what's something that I can do differently in this moment, and then just try a couple other things and see if that changes or if that helps the cycle. Also, just as a reminder, social media is like created to keep you distracted. It's like a casino. Like I feel like I watched this video of this person explaining how they create Instagram and they create reels and other things to keep you on, obviously, but they structure it the same way as a casino, to keep you to coming back. Even if you keep losing, you come back for more. They structure it the same way. There's something that it does to your brain, the same as when you're gambling, when you're addicted to gambling versus when you're scrolling. It's a similar function in your brain. So don't be too hard on yourself. Just recognize that there is someone who is trying to get you to keep scrolling. So you're going to keep scrolling because they've created it to be that way. So you're not the only person that's having this problem. I think this is a universal problem. So there's nothing innately wrong with you and the fact that that's something that you do to cope. It's also sometimes for me more motivating to think somebody is trying to get me to stay on. So that's going to make me mad. So I'm going to get off because I don't want to just fall into I don't want to be someone's puppet. Okay. Which kind of is helpful to me because I don't want some greedy person that wants more money to be wasting my time. I always that's also motivating for me to just get off social media because I'm I don't want to give this person my time. But that being said, just be compassionate. Just recognize that it is hard to not do that. It takes a lot of strength to break any type of cycle, but also, again, it's I don't know the science behind addiction that well, but they do structure it the same way to get people addicted to gambling. So the thing that's happening in your brain is going to be a hard cycle to stop. And that can sometimes be helpful, just the recognition that this is going to be a hard thing to do, but you 100% are capable of doing it. And it will feel so good if you break the cycle. And then I think the last piece of advice is when you go to your phone, you have the pausing, you'll recognize the cycle, you're going to be kind to yourself, compassionate, because it's a hard thing to break. And then also working on any exposures, working on maybe once you recognize there's a cycle, maybe something you can do is do an exposure instead of going and scrolling because maybe a fear is popping up, or maybe that's what you find out. Maybe also there is just, you're tired. Maybe your brain is tired and it wants a break. So maybe a nap is actually better, or maybe just laying in silence or reading your Kindle or reading a book. When you go to grab your phone, if it's am I about to what is the purpose that I'm grabbing this for? And be more intentional. Like if you're grabbing your phone I want to laugh. Okay, actually, there's really funny YouTube videos that maybe is a little bit more contained laughter. So that way you're not going to see things you don't want to see. So YouTube could be a better reference if you want to laugh. Like funniest home videos, if you want to see kind of scroll vibes, but you don't like something to do with your phone. You're like, I just don't want to even go on there because I'm going to get distracted. That's how it works. It's going to get you distracted. And then also just like whenever you're about to grab your phone for that reason, just pick something else that you see and grab that. Probably not a remote unless it's the YouTube thing I was saying, but find something else that you can pick up and then do that instead. And just get into the habit of, instead of grabbing your phone, being like, okay, I'm going to redirect my hand. I'm going to grab that scrapbook. I'm going to start scrapbooking. So all that being said, you are capable of kind of breaking the cycle. And again, entertainment isn't necessarily bad or evil. But if we feel like we should deserve that any second of any day, I think that takes away from the beauty of people who are entertainers as well. Because that is an art, that is a craft, that is like what they like to do. They like to entertain. But when we're just constantly being entertained, it kind of loses the specialness of it. And we almost get annoyed with the entertainment because we see it so much. So if there is a podcast that's maybe more brain rot, it's like there's nothing wrong with listening to a brain rot podcast. There's nothing wrong with listening to brain rot. You're capable of changing it, and we just got to stay focused, okay? We got to remember why we're doing it, the whys. Focus on the whys. Why am I doing this? Because life is beautiful. Life is short. Life is precious. Life is a miracle. It doesn't really make sense. My OCD brain, my existential OCD self doesn't understand a lot of what life is. And I've learned that that's beautiful, and I'm letting go of the control of that. And it's just wonderful, full of wonder. So don't miss out on real life. That's 100% worth it. And the fact that you even are interested in doing that, or you recognize it in some way, means that you're on the right track. That desire to fix this, like you're on the right track. All right, you guys, I think that's going to be it for today's episode. I feel like I've been talking for 3 hours, but I don't actually know how long I've been talking. I feel like I've been talking for a long time. So thank you if you're still listening and if you still are listening to today's episode. I couldn't thank you enough. Thank you so much for supporting my podcast. If you're new or if you've been here for a long time, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I love you guys. I love chatting every week. If you want to support the podcast, you can leave a review on Apple or Spotify podcasts. You can also subscribe, comment on YouTube. I post all of my episodes on there with video. If you want to hear me talk about anything specific, you can leave a Dear Abbey voicemail or text a number that's in the description below on all medias. Or you can just DM me and ask me a question or request a certain type of episode. I love when I get requests. But yeah, I always need new Dear Abbey submissions, questions. It can be about anything. A lot of them are about OCD, which I love. I love those. I also love any other questions. So it doesn't have to be serious. It can be whatever. Again, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Dear Abbey. I hope you guys have a wonderful, beautiful weekend. And see you guys next time. Love you. Bye.
눈치 보면서 들어가 할 때 찾아 나머진 바빠 개설레임 바꾸는 사람들